Dear student, Assalamu alaikum. Today we are discussing respiratory system in fish, chapter number 13 named gases exchange. So today we will discuss the gases exchange in fish and its respiratory system. We know that fishes is the largest group of vertebrates and they are aquatic gill breathing vertebrates. We know that fishes are majorly of two kinds. One, cartilage fish, they are found only in marine water. Other, bony fishes, they are found in both places, that is marine as well as in fresh water. In cartilage fish, the respiratory structures or the respiratory organs are known as gill slits. They are from 1 to 5 pairs. But in comparison, in bony fishes, there are 1 to 2 pairs of gills. You know, gills are the respiratory organs in bony fish. So today we will discuss the respiratory system in fish. First of all, you see that we have recently told you that gills are the respiratory organs in bony fish and they are from 1 to 2 pairs. And actually gills are formed from the pharyngeal outgrowths. In pharynx region, the pharyngeal outgrowth form these gills. So I have noted this one point that gills are pharyngeal outgrowths. And if you see that gills are externally protected, the gills are internal but externally protected by a bony structure called opercula. They are not found in marine cartilage fish but only they are found in bony fishes. Now you see that opercula, commonly called gill cover, they protect the gills from any mechanical injuries. Now you see, I have a second point wrote here that gills are protected by opercula, it means gill covers. And we already had discussed that the respiratory structure should be weight should be thin and should be highly vascularized. So each gill in a fish is highly vascularized, means they are richly supplied with blood and blood capillaries. Now you see the third point I have written that gills are highly vascularized in fish. And if we see the closed structure of the gills, that each gill is composed of 2 rows. And each row is consisting of hundreds of V-shaped filaments. Now, if we further try to know that filaments are supported by a cartilage or a long curved bone called gill bark or gill arch. I have shown here in figure that this is one gill filament. I have written here gill filament. This is gill filament and it's a V-shaped. We know that gill filaments are V-shaped and they are supported by gill bar or gill arc. This is a cartilaginous structure, gill bar or gill arc, and this V-shaped gill filament is supported on this either it may be long curved bone or it's a means cartilage structure and it gives support to the gill filament. In other words we can say that gill filaments in V-shaped are arranged on this cartilaginous structure gill bar. If you see that gill composed of two rows of hundreds of V-shaped filaments, and filaments are supported by a cartilage or a long curved bone called gill bar or gill arc. We see that actually in filaments there are actual respiratory surfaces. These surfaces are actually the foldings and numerous foldings, and they are just plate-like foldings of on gill filament. They are known as gill lamella. You know that actual respiratory surfaces where the gases are exchanged in fish gills are gill lamella, because gill lamella are richly supplied with blood and blood capillaries. Means that's why the gills are highly vascularized. Now you see that we have understood that gill filaments are V-shaped. Suppose I have drawn a figure of a fish, bony fish. See, it's a mouth and these are the gills, and gills are covered by gill opercula, I mean to say gill cover. Now we will see that if we remove this operculum and body's protective structure, we will see the gills which we have already discussed. If take a one gill filament, this is the one gill filament, and its arrangement is V-shaped. Now you see that if we just zoom it in a large diagram, so gill filament just before a time I discussed this that they are V-shaped arranged on gill bar. Now you have to see the mechanism of breathing in a fish. For breathing, we must know about the ventilation, that how a fish does have a ventilation, means how this fresh oxygen along with water, means it is dissolved in water, how it comes and how it leaves the body, how it enters, where from it enters, and how it leaves, where from it leaves the body. Now we see that oxygen which is dissolved in water, fish takes this oxygen by opening of its mouth. When it opens mouth, water enters in the gills, but the meanwhile the gill is closed. Gill opercula are closed. When mouth is closed, gill opercula are open. It means this is the combined action. This is a combined operation of mouth and gill opercula, that they are opening and closing perform or regulate the ventilation in a fish. Now we see the mechanism in a fish, that how the gases exchange takes place at the actual respiratory surfaces, gill lamella. We have already shown this figure, gill lamella. Suppose when water rich in oxygen enters through mouth and just passing over through gills, eventually through gill lamella, respiratory surfaces, I see that if water moves in a direction, that blood entering into the gills, blood moves its opposite direction. If blood and water, we see that blood and water moves in opposite direction. We will say it a system called counter current flow of blood and oxygenated blood and water entering into the gills. Now this is called counter current system in a fish. This counter current system in fish is evolved adaptation, because we already had discussed in previous lecture that water medium contains lesser concentration of oxygen in comparison to the air. Only 5% of oxygen dissolved in water in comparison to the volume of the oxygen in air. Now we see that how this fish extract more and more oxygen to compensate its oxygen demand. So that's why they have developed this counter current flow of oxygenated blood against water entering into the gills. Now see that through counter current flow system, which is adaptation on a fish, it gains about 80% of oxygen from such water medium. Now this is helpful, it's important from its respiration point of view, that it fulfills its need or demand of taking more oxygen. So there is a very great importance of the counter current system in a fish. Now see that we discussed that combined action of mouth, opening of mouth and opening of gill opercula regulate the means ventilation. So it's means useful for the fish, that there must be the ventilation in a fish. And we also discussed that when the blood moves on the gill lamella through its capillary networks, the water entering into the gills and passing through the gills, eventually through the gill lamella, the blood takes oxygen molecules. But in counter current system, what happens? Oxygenated blood moves just opposite the water entering into the gills and gill lamella. So the water drops its more and more oxygen to the blood. That's why this counter current flow of blood and water at gill lamella is useful for the fish. So we have discussed the gaseous exchange, I am going to say breathing in a fish, and we also discussed the ventilation, that how the ventilation is brought about, and we also studied about the respiratory organ gills and their internal structure, what the gills are composed of, where they are supported by, and what are the actual respiratory surfaces where the gases exchange occurs, and what is the mechanism of counter current means system which is operating in a fish for extracting more and more oxygen. We have already told you that about 80% of oxygen is extracted from the water entering into the gills through this counter current flow of blood and water. Thank you.